Liz, another ramble. And today I thought I would talk to you all about something that I have oftentimes found to be incredibly challenging in my life. And it's very interesting because it just shows me all of the ways that my little friend Larry, and for those of you who may be new to me, I often use my amethyst rock, which is what I'm holding, and I put my hand on top, and that represents Larry the lizard, which is simply my way of referring to my reptilian brain, right? My old brain, the brain that's whole mission in life is to conserve as much energy as he can to keep me very safe by doing what I've always done and to not really embrace life, if I'm really honest with you, at least my version of Larry. So I'll often talk about Larry because it's just easier. And what I also need to be able to do is understand that Larry, whilst is me, he's actually the side of me that grew up without conscious awareness. So he took on all of my parents' thoughts, all of my teachers' thoughts, all of the people who I might have been listening to thoughts. He also was my 2, 3, 4-year-old self interpreting what I was seeing and making it mean things about me, which actually weren't true. So the reason I need to keep him as Larry is because it just reminds me, hey, that must be Larry. Larry's telling you you're not worth it. Larry's telling you you can't do this. Larry's saying don't do that, you'll get scared. Larry's the one who's saying you're really tired, you don't do that, right? And so Larry used to show up all of the time when I would set myself goals. My brother was really good at setting goals and creating his pathway to achieve them in his personal life. I was really bad at them. And even when it came to my career was something that just happened because I was naturally good at what I was. I was naturally good. And I like to think sometimes I was in the right place at the right time. And that is how I ended up being in tech and how I ended up becoming a program manager. So I then want to peel back and I wanted to understand, well, what are goals really and why do we set them? And I came back to the conclusion that when we set goals, it's simply us saying to ourselves, this is what I want to achieve, this is where I want to be. And it's different from destination happiness because destination happiness is when we're trying to run away from ourselves, in my opinion, right? I'll be happy when, without fully understanding that if you haven't upgraded your identity, if you haven't shifted the way that you think and act and create your world, then when you get to this idea of this destination where everything will be better, it's not because wherever you go, there you are. And that falls back into my philosophy of you cannot outperform the way you think. So it all ties back to that. So it's goals. Because as a person who runs personal brand business, as somebody who has invested heavily in my brain in terms of understanding coaching, how to coach, different modalities of coaching. I've got 4 different certifications from different coaching schools, and I've probably attended a couple that I didn't graduate from as well, because I was definitely in that cycle of I have to learn more before I do more, which wasn't actually necessary, if the truth be told. But when it comes to those goals, they're like, I like to think of them as the goalpost that drags us forward. It's what my future version wants to create. And what I used to not do, because had this very long habit of setting a goal and never achieving it, is avoiding setting them. And so therefore I was at effect. I wasn't in control of what it was that I wanted to create. And I think when we're trying to create a personal brand business, when we're self-employed, we need to stay very aware at all times about what it is we're trying to execute, why it's important to be executing it. And here's the thing. We need to analyze ahead of time what the cost of the goal will be. What do I mean by that? Anything new is going to cost us something. And we've got little Larry here actively trying to keep us stuck. He's trying to keep us doing the same things because that's to him is safe. He doesn't want us to risk anything because if we risk something, holy heck, what might happen? And so if anything like I was very risk averse. I didn't want to risk too much because it made me incredibly uncomfortable. So when it came to setting goals, I didn't do that work. So of course I never really pursued those goals with vim, vigor, and more importantly, tracking and measurement. I now do that, and this is why. Because instead of just setting some vague goal, and of course I have a big hairy, audacious goal. You might hear me call that my BHAG. And my BHAG is my 3 to 5, maybe even my 20-year vision of who I want to be. And it's always about who, not what, it's who. Because something else I've learned, and I think as we age and as we get more and more wisdom, we come to understand that material possessions are not where it's at. And oftentimes when I was younger, I would set the vision of myself and who I wanted to be as what did I want? But no, who do I want to be? I want to be somebody who loves life. I want to be somebody who has fun. I want to be somebody who can always have a good laugh. I want to be somebody that people think of in a positive way. I want to be able to help my people, my clients, my students, my friends really transform and break patterns. I want to feel valuable. I want to know that I mattered. I don't want to die feeling regret. And those are my drivers. That's my big BHAG. And then on my way there, I have goals. I still have a very strong goal in dressage, which is to train my horse, myself, to the upper levels. I haven't yet achieved that because that was lost. I've only I can look back now and understand fully why I was not going to get that, right? And in my business, my goal is I run a club. You may have heard of it, the BFF Club, Best Friends Forever, or Business Fundamental Foundation. And what I have there is I want 50 active concurrent clients at a time. And 50 is a lot, but 50 is a little. And depending on whom I talk to and their opinions, it's very interesting. But why do I say 50? Because I know my eyes on 50 people's businesses is completely possible with the way my brain works. I can give them my all. I can keep up with what they're doing. I can tune in. I can listen. I can support. If it's anything more than that, it becomes too many. I can't give them the individualized attention I want to give. So that's my BHAC, right? 50 people in my club. So those are my goals. But now, in order for me to know, are they attainable? Should they be my goals? I now do what I call my cost analysis benefit ratio. What would the goal cost me? Because there are some things I am not willing to sacrifice anymore. If I think back to when I was very young, I was incredibly fit, but I used to be fit because I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day on it. Like I'd be lifting weights and I'd be doing a lot of cardiovascular work. I would also be having a very restricted diet, except for the days I'm binging, right? So I'm not prepared to do that lifestyle anymore. I'm not going to go to the gym for 3 hours a day. I'm not going to be restrictive in my diet like I was. But I am willing to work out for an hour a day. I am willing to watch how much sugar I put into my body because as part of my dressage goals, I need to keep my body flexible. I need it to be strong. I need a very strong core. I need a lot of hip flexibility and mobility. So I know I need to work at those things. So now if I have a dressage goal, I always come back to, well, am I prepared to put that work in? Am I prepared to put that sweat equity in? And if the answer is yes, I keep the goal. If the answer is no, I have to review the goal. Now, when it comes to building your business, it's the same thing. There's a big difference between the version of you that signs her first clients versus the version that may be signing her 10th or her 30th, or somebody who's gone from one-to-one coaching to group coaching to perhaps mastermind coaching. There's a process to that. But at the very beginning, if little Larry here, and Larry was always very strong in me. He's still around. He'll never disappear, but his voice gets a little less, and I'm retraining him thought by thought. But if Larry is really strong, and then what I often find, if you've had a childhood like I had, where a predominant thought that you have is you're not good enough, or people won't like you, or you have no value, even though you're probably the most high achieving, successful human in other areas of your life. That's why there's this conflict. Then that's the work that we have to put into the goal at the beginning. And I think that's why so many people who create personal brand businesses, specifically coaches or consultants, fail is because I didn't understand that was the work. That's the goal first. The goal is, who do I need to be? What do I need to think? What do I need to change about myself in order to grow this business? Because it's not just the skill of building a business and the skill, you need the obvious, right? You know them: marketing, selling, financials. You need some legal stuff. You've got to learn tech. if you get big enough, you're going to be managing teams. If you haven't managed teams, that's a whole thing in and of itself. You've got to learn how to create curriculum. If you've got a course or something similar, you've got to learn consistency and dedication to creating content, because people aren't going to pay you necessarily for time. They're going to pay for the value. And so that's the other thing that we have to think about. So when we're setting a business goal, if you have never made money before and you come into me and you work with me in my club, what we think about there is, well, we use my think framework, right? Because the first things I want to understand is, well, what do you think about yourself? What is your level of belief? How much do you want it? Are you prepared to sacrifice the things that you may need to sacrifice in order to achieve that goal? And sacrificing means things as simple as, are you willing to stay very uncomfortable whilst you learn to market, whilst you learn to sell? Are you willing to feel very overwhelmed when you're learning something that you've never learnt before? I have a lot of people who struggle with tech, and they make tech into this big problem for themselves, and then it spirals and they catastrophize. Now I do that with other things, so I can fully relate to that, but that's the cost, right? The cost is you have to experience that, and you have to learn from it, and you have to learn to manage it, and then you have to learn to overcome it, because you simply cannot achieve that goal without doing that work. And it's the stuff nobody tells you about. It's the stuff that's not talked a lot about, because I could give you what I would call a seven-figure strategy to build your coaching business right now, today. I could map it out for you. I could give you project plans. I could tell you who you would need to hire and when. I could say what strategies to execute when and why. I could say how to formulate ads if you need them. I could give you the whole shebang. I could explain how many people on your email list you would need, what your offer price would be, everything. But if your brain is not the identity of a seven-figure income earner, you will not execute it. And that is how I always talk about it when I say you cannot outperform the way you think. If you think nobody wants what I've got, that is what I call your unintentional sales model. That comes out in your energy. So even though you might have the most perfectly written script, which is why I'm always like, be careful with AI. AI is not all it's cracked up to be. It's going to help you solve the white page problem, that empty black thing of, but what do I say and how do I say it? But that unconscious, unintentional sales model that you've got in the background, with all of the negativity that you may have generated that you may not even be consciously aware of, that throws up in your energy. It's very hard to bring somebody on a sales journey which involves you transferring certainty and trust from you to them if you have that running in the background. And that is what creates so many people that I see go out of business. I've been in this game since, well, 2012 was my first certification with Coach University. And I didn't stop working as a program manager until 2019. And I was yeah, I've lost count of the amount of people that I would have met that were building their businesses that don't do it anymore. And it's simply because they didn't understand what the goal would cost. And they didn't sign up for that. And we didn't do that work ahead of time, which is why something I do in my club is we do that work ahead of time. We are always trying to expand our tolerance, our capacity, our ability to sustain the feeling of what risk is, our ability to sit in the discomfort of the learn, try, fail, do it better, try, fail process, which is a loop that you have to do. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter whether it's building your business, riding a horse, learning a language, getting fitter, running a marathon, losing weight, learning to cook, learning to sew. That loop exists because success never teaches you. Success is the result of that loop, of that breakthrough, is of that determination to keep going. And that is why goals, in my case, and maybe for you too, that's why I never wanted to set goals, because after a while you got tired of not achieving the goals, and we simply didn't achieve the goal because we didn't do this cost analysis, and we didn't sign up or understand what it would cost and what the sacrifices would be. And another example of a sacrifice, if you're building your business, you may need to work a little longer and a little harder than you want to. You have to go, am I prepared to give up my evenings? Am I prepared to give up my weekends to learn these skills? Or it could be if you're trying to do what I do, which is still maintain a healthy body weight and still keep your cardiovascular up so you can ride your horses. Am I prepared to watch my diet? Am I prepared to cut some sugar out of my diet? Because for me, I love sugar foods, but they don't love me. And I will wake up, my mind and sugar, they're not a good combination. And that shows up when I ride. So I have to be prepared to sacrifice that. Is it worth it? And one thing I found out is that if my values are being sacrificed, it's not worth it to me. And so, what do I mean by that? For a while there, I was in a bro marketing scheme because my brain offered you can't sell, you can't market, you need to go and learn to do that, go work with these people. And that was a hustle culture and what we all term bro marketing. And it never sat well with me, and I couldn't do it. To me, it was too spammy and scammy because although they taught you sell the promise based on your best client. And like I think I've mentioned, I have 6 and 7 figure clients. I have a lot of people that haven't made any money yet as well. But if all my marketing was just to them, it never felt an integrity. It was against my values because I want to be transparent and I want to be honest and I want to sell in integrity. And I want to know that if you sign up to work with me, that you're signing up to get a result that I can promise you. And I can promise you transformation. I can promise you you will build a business that you will learn to love because that's a key fundamental that I teach inside my club. But I can't promise you you're going to make a lot of money, you're going to sell a lot of clients because only you can promise you that. Because here's what we go back to that unintentional sales model. If you're not doing the thought work, if you are not actively changing your identity, if you are not moving and growing, and it's so easy to stagnate. I stagnated in my business for 2 or 3 years, to be quite blunt with you. I thought I was making progress, but I wasn't. I was just keeping going down that same dead end road time and time again, thinking I was driving down it differently. But no, I wasn't. I was doing the same thing. I was doing insanity work. And it took a while for me to go, oh, well, actually, it was because I got a new coach and the coach did it. And that's why I always think we need coaches because sometimes we cannot see what we are doing. We need an external person to come in and go, are you aware? Are you seeing? Because even in my club, I will be talking to one of my clients and the whole rhetoric is very negative. Everything she phrases is negative and she's completely unaware of it. And so I just have to remind and draw her attention to it because that's the unintentional stuff. That's what keeps us spiraling and in that loop. So yeah, that's another thing we have to think about is, am I willing to do the work? Am I willing to sacrifice? And what is it that I would need to become or do to become that next version of myself? Am I willing to expand my capacity? Am I willing to expand my risk tolerance? Am I willing to feel the feelings that I may not be willing at the moment to feel? One of the things that a lot of us can't feel because we don't want to feel it inside of us is that failure. But again, when we're building our businesses, we expect you to convert 10 to 20% of all offers you make. If you've made 100 offers, you're only going to get 10 to 20 yeses. 80 to 90 of people will be no. And they're not no because of you, they're no because of the offer. The offer isn't the right offer for them. And it doesn't also mean that your offer might suck. I like to think of it like this. You might be in the food industry and you might be a wonderful, gregarious, wonderful personality, right? But if you've got chefs watching you, because we tend to all want to be involved in the things that interest us, and you're telling the chef, hey, come into my cookie making class, he's not going to buy it because he doesn't need it, right? He doesn't need it, but he loves you. He loves listening to you. So he's not rejecting you. He's not saying no. The offer just isn't an offer for him. But sometimes you can take that on board or you want to hide because you don't even want to get that rejection. So that's the other thing we have to think about is, can I expand that? Can I hold that? Am I willing to feel that? And that's all part of these goals. And I think when we proper prior plan to prevent poor performance, that's my 7 P's of project management, and this is part of proper prior planning, then we set ourselves up for success in a much stronger position because we can always come back and go, okay, here it is. I was willing to sacrifice this. I was willing to put this effort in. I was willing to experience this feeling. I was willing to to have this level of rejection if it's selling, for example. And that puts you in a completely different place than if it's just you're leaving it to chance. So I hope that was useful. If so, hit the thumbs up. I'm still pretty new to this game. Feel free to subscribe. I will be continually doing these ramblings. I may get even more organized so that I don't waffle and go all over the place. But you know what I find is it's sometimes really good to listen to somebody who's doing the work so that you can see it and recognize it. Because, guys, the most successful people on the planet who you think are the most successful people on the planet, they're struggling with the same stuff. They're just at a different place in their journey, perhaps. So we sometimes need to see it, hear it, to understand it, to give us permission to keep trying, to keep showing up, to keep digging, to keep setting goals, and to keep becoming the version of you that achieves the goal. Knowing that big, hairy, audacious goal way up there, you might never get there, but oh my God, it will be worth every step of the way because you will change who you are. And I think if you've got a goal inside of you that you're passionate about, that you're wanting to create or wanting to achieve, even if you don't do it, the pursuit of it will improve you. It will improve your life. It will improve everything around you. And that, my friends, that is 100% worth having. So yeah, I hope this was, like I say, I hope it was useful. Let me know below. Feel free to comment. Feel free to email me, liz@lbfundamentals.com. That's how you can get a hold of me. Otherwise, I will see you in the next ramble. Take care, everybody. And remember, you cannot outperform the way you think. If you do not like where you are, you, my friend, have the power to change. Change is good. It's possible. You can do it. Get to work. I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.